Hello and welcome to one and all. In today's class, I'll continue with the objectives of economic development. Before that, a small recap. The meaning of the previous class, I explained to you what is the meaning of economic growth and economic development. So, to be sure, economic growth implies sustained rise in the production of goods and services in a country, or product per capita. I explained to you what is the meaning of product per capita. The output per head should keep on increasing. And this is economic growth is more related to the developed countries because they need not have to bother about any other changes in their own countries because they have initiated all those changes I explained to you yesterday. So they have to keep on checking year after year what is the growth rate of national income in the country. It should not come down. It should keep on increasing. Even if it is not increasing, at least it should maintain the same growth rate as the previous year, but it should not come down. So that is the only botheration of those countries which are just checking the economic growth, which happens to be the developed countries. And coming to the economic development. So economic development is economic growth along with all the social, institutional, and structural changes. So this is economic development is more concerned with the developing or the underdeveloped countries, with the developing countries. So in these countries, you cannot be sure that the national income of the country will keep on increasing continuously. One year it might increase at the rate of 6%. Next year it might immediately decrease at the or increase only at the rate of 3%. So because they have not completely initiated all those changes which are necessitated, I mentioned to you in the previous class what are all the structural changes the country has to undergo if they are in the process of economic development. So unless all those structural changes are completely initiated by the countries, there will always be ups and downs in the growth rate of national income. So economic development is the more concern of the developing countries. So along with the national income, they have to simultaneously keep on checking on all those other changes in the country. So once the country finishes all those changes, then the process of economic development will be over. The country will reach the takeoff stage, and automatically the country will keep on growing. So they need not have to bother about anything else. They have to check only the rise in the national income of the country. So that is the first stage is economic development, and the final stage is the economic growth. And it is a process. It takes a very, very long period, more than 20-35 years of period of time it is going to take. I mean, as far as India is concerned, still we are in the process of economic development only. We haven't reached that economic growth stage. So it depends upon the nature of each and every country. The process will take a long period of time. Okay. Now, moving on to the what are all the objectives of economic development. So we keep on saying that the structural changes have to be initiated in the country. So in order to, if you have to undergo all these changes, then you have to fix a target. So the target, in order to reach the target, what are all the changes that has to be implemented in the country? So that is the objectives of economic development. And in this syllabus, even though it is a macroeconomic subject matter, it is all the data is all pertaining to India. We are basically studying about the economic development of India. So every topic is more related to the Indian economy. So the first and foremost target is high rate of growth. So that is one of the high rate of growth in the sense the national income. So this is national income. This happens to be the one of the basic indicators of a country's progress. Whether your poverty is reduced, whether unemployment is reduced, whether your the modern attitudes of the people are there in the country or not, whatever it is, the first and foremost indicator to know about the development or otherwise of a country is the growth rate of national income. So that is the first indicator. So the basic target is to check whether the national income of the country keeps on increasing. As far as India is concerned, we all know that we are undertaking the process of development through something called as 5-year plans. Each and every country chooses its own path. As far as India is concerned, we are developing our country economically on the basis of planning. So the first 5-year plan was started in 1951. And from 1951 and every 5-year plan, the first and foremost target will be what should be the growth rate of national income in this 5-year period. That is the basic target fixed by the Planning Commission. So now it is Niti Aayog. Planning Commission is replaced by Niti Aayog. So first 5-year plan between 1951-52 to 1955-56, or and second 5-year plan 1955-56 to 1960-61 is the first one. Second, so like that every 5-year period, and in between there were gaps also due to some unavoidable circumstances, which we will deal with it later. So starting from 1950, 52 to government initiated the planning process in the country. But from 1951 to till 1980. So during this 3 decades of planning, on an average, our national income was growing only at the rate of 3.5%. So this is a from 1951 to 1980, the average annual growth rate of national income. So this was the, uh, the national income was growing at a very, very low percentage. That was the 3% was the growth rate. This is the national income. If you check the population simultaneously during these 3 decades, the population of the country was also increasing at the rate of around 2.5% per annum. So, meaning what? Along with the rise in the national income, even though the national income is the increase in the national income is very, very meager, but the population of the country was also increasing at an alarming rate. So more than 2% it rise in the population is a very, very high growth rate of population. So if you take it average annual growth rate of population from 1950 to 1980, it was increasing at the rate of 2.5%. So due to this, the per capita income of the country was increasing only at the rate of 1%. So we all know that if the population increases, the per capita income decreases. So which is a very, very poor growth rate for the for 30-year period. And this was the situation in India. This is, as I mentioned to you, everything, all the data pertain to India. And for the first time in after 1980s, the growth rate exceeded 5%. On an average, it was around 5.5%. We were able to break that barrier of 3% growth rate. So 1980, 1980 to 85, it is the sixth plan started, sixth 5-year plan started. So by the end of the fifth 5-year plan and from the sixth plan onwards, India was able to raise the national income at the rate of 5 or 5.5%. And later in ninth and 10th plans onwards, it also increased at the rate of 9%. But in recent years, you can say that the national income is increasing at the rate of around 7%. Okay, this is the average annual growth rate of national income. But if you compare some of the other developing countries, the countries which were also initiating the process of economic development, for example, you take China. During the same period, the China's growth rate increased at the rate of 10%. And please remember, all these data's information pertains to before COVID, pre-COVID days. So, when you compare with the other developing countries, the progress of India is not that much significant. Still, we have a long way to go. But only consolation is that we broke that barrier. We were able to cross the 3%, and now we have reached the 7% growth rate in the national income. So the growth rate in the national income year after year, that should be the first objective or the target of economic planning. Okay, for economic development. Then the second objective is economic self-reliance. So self-reliance, the meaning of self-reliance, relying on our own production or income without depending on foreign aid. So this is the meaning of self-reliance. So there are two concepts. One is self-sufficiency and another one is the self-reliance. Self-sufficiency means if any country is aiming for self-sufficiency, that means what, they are totally self-sufficient. There are no imports in that particular country. So whatever the goods or services which they require, they are producing on their own. They are not depending on the import of any commodity or service from the other countries. That is the meaning of self-sufficiency. But it is very, very difficult for one country to produce all the goods and services on its own without import of any commodity from the other countries. That is next to impossible. So it is most of the countries, they have the object of self-reliance. Self-reliance means generating surplus through exports for the payment to be made by importing, or in other words, whatever the commodity which the country can manufacture at a cheaper rate, they have to manufacture in abundance, and those commodities or services that has to be, they have to be exported to other countries, and whatever the surplus export receipts which we are receiving, that should be sufficient enough to pay for all the commodities that are to be imported. So you are relying on your own generation of surplus without depending upon the other countries for the payment of your imports. So that is the meaning of self-reliance. So in the present day context, as I mentioned to you, self-sufficiency is very difficult. What the countries can do, they can only choose being self-reliant. That means whatever the commodity they can produce in abundance, that they should try to produce in abundance, and they should try to export those commodities, and they should try to generate the surplus, and that receipts should be sufficient enough to pay for the import of whatever the commodities or services that particular country requires. Okay, as far as India is concerned, right from the time the planning started in 1951 and also 1955-56 is the second 5-year plan started in 1955-56, and second 5-year plan, the main objective of the Indian 5-year plan was it was an industrial plan. So the government wanted to develop heavy industries in the country, capital goods industries in the country. So that required lots of investment, that requires lots of technology, and that requires lots of import of machinery from the other countries. So which was beyond the capacity of the country. So right from the time the planning started, and especially during the second 5-year plan, India had to rely on foreign aid tremendously for the implementation of planning process and also for the development of the country. And on the top of it, during the third 5-year plan, that is from 1960-61 to 1965-66, there was severe economic crisis in the country. We had war with China, we had war with Pakistan, and there were severe drought conditions in the country. So it was the severe economic crisis happened in the country, and agricultural sector totally failed. So what happened? We have to even import food grains from the other countries. So that became it was a disaster for the country. So because of this reason, the then government made one of the most important objectives of Indian 5-year planning should be attainment of self-reliance. That means whatever I told just now, I explained the meaning. So apart from all the other things, attainment of self-reliance should be one of the most important objectives of the Indian economic planning. So later, over a period of time, India was able to at least the food grain. The green revolution was implemented in the country. So we were able to attain self-sufficiency in the food grains. That means what we need not have to import food grains from the other country. And whatever the surplus generated in our country in the later plans, the export substitution was implemented in the country. That means whatever the commodities we can export, those commodities are where started being exported from our country. So from that surplus, we were able to finance our imports. So after fifth and sixth 5-year plan, India was more or less able to reach the target of self-reliance. Okay, so that is the second objective. Then the third objective is attainment of social justice. So social justice, this is an economic term for equal distribution of income and wealth. Okay, so this, in order to reach that equal distribution of income and wealth, the government emphasized certain there was principles have been, certain rules and regulations were being highlighted or emphasized by the government. So the first is the country should be on the democratic principles. So we all know that we are following that India is a democratic country. So democratic principles is being followed by the country. And then the next one, what the highlight or emphasize, the government emphasizes the social and economic equality or equity by removing regional disparities. So regional disparities means imbalances in the development of each and every region. So regional imbalances, or in other words, the regional disparities. Some of the areas are more advanced and some of the areas remain backward. So that should not be the case. All the area, according to their potential, they should be given due importance, and each and every region should be developed. So in order to do that, the government has several programs, specific programs were being implemented by the government to develop each and every region, especially the backward regions in the country. So if the potential for development of industries are there, then industries were being developed in that country. Or whatever, if the potential for any other desert area program, hill area development program, like that, according to the suitability of the region, specific programs were being implemented or started by the country, so that the regional imbalances will be removed. Then the third one is decentralization of power. So the decentralization of power means there should not be any concentration of economic power. So concentration of economic power means the only the rich are becoming the richer. It is not only that, at the same time, the planning process should also be decentralized. So the government has initiated several programs for that decentralization of economic power. One example is the government in the agricultural sector, the government introduced the land reforms. So the basically land reforms means distributing the excess land owned by the big landlords. They were taken away by the government and redistributed to the small and marginal farmers. This is one of the main uh, program of land reforms. You will study detailedly in the later chapters. And also we have that fiscal policy. Our tax policy, we are following the progressive system of taxation. So higher the income, higher the tax rate. So progressive tax policy. So the fiscal policy were modified in such a way that the government is the concentration of economic power in a few hands is being removed. Okay, and then the next one is the raise the conditions of backward and depressed classes. So several employment programs were initiated by the government specifically for all those backward sections like SC, ST and other backward castes. So specific employment programs and other economic concessions were being implemented by the government so that their conditions will also economically will improve. So in this way, the government tried to attain the social justice. Then the next, the fourth one, the next one is the modernization. So modernization in all sectors, advanced technology should be encouraged. So in all, when I say all sectors, for example, in agriculture, the government introduced the green revolution. So the green revolution is nothing but the modern methods of cultivation, use of seeds, fertilizers, pesticides. So that is the technological reforms. So in agricultural sector, the green revolution were being, apart from land reforms, the government also introduced the technological reforms in the form of green revolution. When you in the industrial sector, also all the modern methods were being favored by the country. So in such a way that our more and more of out of the total composition of industrial output, the capital goods component started increasing. When I was explaining about the structural changes in the economy for economic development, one of the structural changes the government has to initiate is more and more of capital goods industry should be established in the place of consumer goods industry. That program has been initiated by the government because of using adoption of modern methods of production in the industry. So the capital goods, and also we were able to manufacture variety of different varieties of industrial goods, also able to produce different varieties of industrial goods. So there was what do you say, that there were diversification of industrial products. Okay, so that is being implemented by the government over a period of planning. That is a model in the industrial sector by adopting the advanced techniques of production. And apart from not only in the agriculture and industry, and even when you come to the tertiary sector, the financial institutions, they have been modernized. So all the banks and non-banking financial institution, so they have also been modernized, and they were able to cater to the needs of both the agriculture industry and also all the other sectors in the economy. Apart from establishing so many branches of banks, the whatever the technique implemented in the financial institution, they were able to cater to each and every sector of the country. So financial institutions, also the modern methods, and not to mention about IT, which is revolutionizing and which is favoring the modern methods of production, modern methods of administration in each and every sector of the country. Okay, that anyway, that should be the another objective for the economic development. The next one is the economic stability. So this economic stability, it is not only the rise in national income. The national income should rise in such a way that there is no increase in the general increase or decrease in the general price level. So if the along with the rise in national income, if the price level in the country keeps on fluctuating, then the economy will not be stable. Okay, so that is not the correct way of development. Economics development is more of a normative statement. Normative economics as a normative science, you must be knowing. So economic development is more of a normative statement, the way the country should develop itself. So it is not only the rise in national income, the national income should rise in such a way that it is more or less it is stable without any fluctuations. So the fluctuations in the national income will happen only when there are fluctuations in the general price level. So the general price level, it can either it will be inflation or deflation. As far as India is concerned, we are not affected more by deflation. Always the problem is with the inflation, because right from the first 5-year plan, the expenditure of the government kept on increasing. The planning expenditure escalated the cost. And apart from that, we have to keep on importing capital goods and other articles from the other technology from the other countries. So all these increase the general price level in the country. So over a period of time, the inflation in the country kept on increasing. So even today, the main objective of one of the main objectives of planning should be economic growth or development without any inflation, or economic development with stability. So if the price level keeps on increasing, country will not be stable because of the planning process, because of the expenditure of the government, and also apart from that, we all know the population also continuously keeps on increasing. The disposable income of the people keep on increasing continuously. So all these lead to rise in the general price level. Inflation is continuously happening. So that is not the correct sign. So the government should see in such a way that the country is progressing without any inflationary trends in the economy. That is the next target. Then the next one is the sustainable development. So the sustainable development is development should happen, that is economic development. Development should happen in a country in such a way that the environment is preserved for the future generation, in such a way that the environment is preserved That means without any degradation for future generations. So when we are developing the country, automatically there will be environmental degradation, isn't it? So the transportation sector will improve, the industrial sector will improve, isn't it? All the chemical industries and all the water pollution, all sorts of pollution will be there in the country. So ultimately, all these will destroy the environment. So if it destroys the environment, the whatever the quality of environment the current generation is having, that will not be enjoyed by the future generation. So we are giving a degraded environment to the future generation. So that should not be happening. Everybody must be knowing about the impact of global warming. So this is because previously none of the countries were bothering about that sustainable development. They developed their own countries without bothering about the quality of environment being destroyed. So that should not be the case. So sustainable development means the environment, to put it very simply, the pollution in all sorts of pollution. So pollutions in the country must be checked. So it is not only the physical capital. We all know that physical capital. The first year we have studied about the physical capital, machinery, tools, money, everything. Physical capital, human capital, labor force, the efficiency of the labor force, and now there should be another capital, that is environmental capital. So this is also included in the total capital stock of the country. So this environmental capital should also be preserved for the future generation. So this is the sustainable development. And the last one is the inclusive growth. So inclusive growth, when the country is developing, the most poor sections of the economy, they should also, the most poor category, they should also benefit from the development. Actually, what is happening? The benefits of economic development, that is the rise in national income, is not reaching the poorer sections of the country. So they are not being included in the growth. Again, that is not the correct thing. So the benefits from the development should also reach the most poorer sections of the country. So for example, if the bottom 20%, that is the bottom 20%, the poorest of the poor. So bottom 20% of the poor, if they are having a share of only 2% or 3% share in national income, that should be raised to at least 5% to 10%. So from 2% to 3%, they should get share of a minimum of 5% to 10% share in the national income. If the country is able to do that, then it means that the country is including even the most poorer sections of the population in the country in the process of economic development. Okay, so these are all the objectives of economic development. And still we are, some of the objectives we have attained, some of the objectives we are yet to finish. Okay, it is a long term process. Okay, so next class we will see about the indicators of economic development. So if you find this video useful, please like, share and subscribe, and if you have any doubts, please don't fail to mention in the comment box. Okay, until my next video, take care, bye bye.